Welcome to the Entrepreneur Show. This is your host, Michael Marra. I'm the CEO and founder of Entre, a social network for entrepreneurs, investors, and freelancers. On this show, we interview the top CEOs, venture capitalists, angel investors, and founders. Connect with me and thousands of other like-minded people by signing up for free at joinentre.com or download our mobile app on iOS and Android.
Rob, really appreciate you being here, taking the time. I'm excited to get into this. I think you have an incredible story, which we're going to get into here. And you've been an entrepreneur now for over 25 years, and you've lived through some really interesting time periods as well. And curious what you think of the current time period, but we'll get into that later on. I want to start with really kind of how you initially got going. Like what made you even want to get into entrepreneurship in the 90s? Because it wasn't as cool as it is now. It wasn't something that was as popular as it is now. So what made you want to do that? What was like the reason that you wanted to, kind of be your own boss or start your own company? And how did that all happen?
Yeah, I guess it's really two things. One is I come from a entrepreneurial family. So my grandparents, my grandfathers had their own small businesses. My dad had a business. Everyone in the family has been pretty entrepreneurial. So I think there's a little bit of that. I was raised to think this is kind of normal. And then the second part is when I got out of college, I graduated in 90. I had my first job. And I ended up getting fired like within 6 months or so because they were downsizing and they did a restructuring, and I was, a young guy in there, and I got let go. And it kind of just made me think like, I don't want to work for someone. Like I didn't feel like, I had control over the destiny of my life. And I even said that they took me to lunch because they were so like, they felt so bad. And I remember there's like 7 people in the office, and they asked me at the end, one guy, "What'd you learn about this experience?" I said, I'll never effing work for a company again in my life. This sucked. So I got fired by fax. Actually, I got fired by a fax by corporate headquarters, sent the fax over, and my name was on it. And I was manning the fax machines at the time. So I saw, terminate this guy. And I was like, okay, this sucks. So that kind of drove me to think, what could I do something purposeful for myself?
That's actually a really interesting story. You're the first person I've ever heard that's gotten fired by a fax. So that
We'll spend my
yeah, that's a really funny way to to get fired. So you started LivePerson in 95, right? And you basically invented live chat on websites and everything. So how did you see, because now it's like almost every single website and app has this. How did you, number one, how did the idea come about? And then how did you even think of that to begin with, and see the potential in what that would become? Because now I'm sure you're like looking back on it, you're like, this is pretty insane that every single website has this feature that we basically started. And what was that? So what was the inception of that? How did it come to life?
95, I got into the business, and the internet was just starting on the commerce side. And I'd seen the internet in 93. It was more like an academic tool, and then it was commerce. So 95 commerce starts to hit. And I remember, I was building websites, and one of the greatest challenges was that, consumers were on these websites. And I remember for myself, I was trying to buy on Dell Computer's website, and I configured a computer, and then I need to call someone. And I remember I talked to someone on the phone. I had to hang up, I had a dial-up connection. It was a mess. I thought, that's ridiculous. Like, why can't I just chat at the point of need? And I wanted to bring the people back into the store. It was pretty straightforward. And I always felt that conversations really create a personalized experience. So that's what drove me to create web chat. And it didn't exist at the time. And now you take it for granted.
Yeah.
But it's the thing that I created because chat was around, and there were chat rooms and different chat things. And ICQ just came out, which is a precursor to like WhatsApp and stuff. But there was nothing on the West. So I invented the technology and then filed the first patents on it.
Yeah, and it's like you're saying. I mean, it's one of those ideas that you're just like, why doesn't this exist? And I think that's. Oh, I think you just refreshed the page. But yeah, it's. I mean, just the fact that he invented that and filed patents on it is pretty insane. I'm sure all of you are using web chats and mobile chats all the time now. And it looks like you just popped back in, but yeah, I think it's just crazy, like to think like how that got started and how it transformed. I mean, I love chat now. Like I don't want to call these, any software service or any of that, wait on even today, wait online. And it blows my mind how still some people don't have the chat integrated yet. And we're still doing this. It's insane. But it means that there's still obviously opportunity for you to keep growing your business. And it's obviously transformed over the last 20 years, which we'll definitely get into with the inception of more AI and data, which I know you're big into as well. I want to, keep things at the early stages and tell us more about when you took the company public, because you went public at a really interesting time, right? You went public, what, April 2000,
Yeah.
which is basically right before the biggest .com crash that we've seen for tech companies. So number one, walk us through what that was like, just taking the company public in general. Like, was there any things that you learned about that experience and whatnot? And then I'd love to have you share too how you kind of persevered through the crash and what that whole time frame was like, because it had to just be insane.
Yeah, it was a very surreal. I mean, 2000 and 2001 was fairly surreal and something that, you know, I hope to never repeat, which was, we went out, we were going public April 7th of 2000. We were 3 weeks doing a road show to market the company to go public. We were raising $60 million was our raise, which was big back then. And about the second week into the road show, the analyst, the head economist at Goldman Sachs, I think her name is Abby Cohen. I remember it. We were somewhere in the middle of America, and we woke up in the morning and we were watching CNBC, and she came on and said the internet's bubble, and you should start selling. Like, I remember this, and it was already kind of fragile. People thought this is ridiculous, the valuations and stuff. I mean, we had 2 million in revenues, and we were supposed to go public with a $600 million market cap on 2 million in revenues. So the that day it went down 300 points. I remember this, and then it started to go like this. And as we were closing up the road show, we were 10 times oversubscribed going into that day, like 10 times more buyers than we needed. And when we got to price the deal, the book was half built. That's how many of the buyers disappeared. And so we got it out the door. We raised 30 instead of 60 million. We cut the valuation in half to 300 million, and we went public. And then I just knew, like, it was over. And then a series of things happened. By the end of the year, I get a call from our head of sales on the West Coast, and he normally was booking like 100 new customers a month. And in like November of 2000, he booked zero. He had zero customers, went from 100 new sales to zero. And he was booking all the .coms on the West Coast down in Silicon Valley. And I called him and said, Dwight, what the hell's going on? He goes, there's no more sales. I said, what are you talking about? So I went on a plane and flew out the next day. I met with him in San Francisco, and I said, what's going on? He goes, look, it's over. He said, it's over. He goes, you should shut us down. Imagine this guy ran the office, sales guy. He says, you should just shut us down. We're done. And you're going to feel it next on the East Coast and globally. But this is the future. So I was like, oh shit. So we ended up shutting him down. And then we hit 2001, and I went to the board of directors with a restructuring plan to basically terminate 80% of the employees in the company in one shot, and we do it early because I didn't want to run out of money. Now, but people may know, I had a company out of college that I started from 1991 to 1995, and that company went under. So when I started this company, I was very broke. I slept on a couch in an office. I couldn't afford to have an apartment or anything. I mean, I was eating ramen noodles. This was 24 months of this. That left a scar on me that was pretty deep. And so when I was faced with the fact that potentially this company could go under, I wasn't going to mess around with it. I was like, we're just going to we're going to get our cost structure down to 2 million a year. That's what's going to happen. And a lot of people, my peers, were thinking there was more money to raise. It was just a temporary thing. And it wasn't. It was a permanent thing. And we just took it seriously, and we did the hard work, and that's what happened. So I fired there's 140 people we terminated in one day. And there were 40 of us left to run a public company. And then the stock went down from to about 7 cents a share around 9/11. And so we had a $2 million market cap at our low point. Now today we're 3.5 billion, but we were 2 million back then. So
Wow.
there's yeah.
That's insane. What, like, were you able to, number one, how did that, like, I love the fact that you wanted to make this, you had no other options besides making this work, and you did whatever it took to make that happen. How hard was it to let the people go? And then as you came back, did you bring back any of these people? Did the core team like really appreciate the fact that you wanted to see this through and you wanted to make this work rather than just giving up?
No, I mean, that's, you're dealing with, it's reality of people's lives. Now, the thing was, we weren't the only person. I mean, the layoffs were happening in mass.
Guys,
So there was like Sun Microsystems was below $1. I mean, tech in itself was in the toilet. So there was a lot of bad things going on. So we weren't unique to the situation. With that said, obviously it was hard to do it. It's the first time I ever had to fire everyone was this type of a situation, not one person. Up to that point, I just hired people. And so, one of my board members, Bob Matchlot, who also served on the board of Disney, he was the vice chairman of Seagram's and Morgan Stanley. He was on my board. We came through a venture round. And he told me when we gave the restructuring plan to the board, he said to me, he goes, I'm going to give you a piece of advice because you're really young. I was, 33 in public. And he said, you've never fired anyone. He says, and what you're about to do is lay off like 80% of your company. And I don't know if you're going to make it. He said, the restructuring plan seems like a dream. Like I'm saying, like, you nail it, but it's so out of there. You got to like fire these people. We got to move all the customers to a new platform of a company we bought that's cheaper. We got to get out of our leases. I mean, there was just like, it was 20 things we had to do to perfection. He said, look, I don't know if you're going to make it, but you're really young. So, and you have a whole career ahead of you. So I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Just don't bullshit them. Like if you bullshit them, whoever they are, like don't bullshit the employees, don't bullshit the investors, don't bullshit yourself. You just got to say it like it is. And they'll remember you for that. And after it's all done, like they'll just think you were a straight shooter and they'll respect you for it. But if you start doing bullshit, they're going to remember that. And then you're going to ruin your reputation. And so when we did it, we were like totally honest, like, and the people who stayed, I was very honest with them too. And with our shareholders, at that time, there weren't many, but it was like, just tell them the way it is. And, we sucked it up and we made it through and we're here today for it. So it gave us a unique story as a company. It gave us a foundation that very few companies have. The great ones usually have them. They usually have a story like this. But this is unique to us.
I absolutely love that. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I think from interviewing and talking to other founders and even investors to being radically transparent is a really strong sign of leadership. And when people feel like they understand what's going on, and you're able to, at the end of the day, tell the truth about what's happening and just being real with people. That goes a long way. And I think we're starting to see a transition happening across several industries. Um, that this is coming to the forefront. And if you're not real, if you're not genuine, if you're not authentic, if you're not transparent with people, employees, investors, all of that, you're not going to be able to do anything going forward. And I think people recognize bullshit a lot quicker nowadays, especially the younger kids like Gen Z. They do not. They've seen so many ads, they've seen so many scams and BS with on the internet and elsewhere, that they can spot, disingenuine or fake things so fast nowadays. It's really it's really funny. Um,
Look, I have distance between that moment and today, but it was, it was emotionally draining. I remember that day I had to let go of, there were four people I hired. My first hires were four people. And that day I was tasked with letting go of three out of the four. That was my task. The rest was taken care of by my CFO and another guy. And it was tough, and we never talked again because they ran out of the will. They didn't have the will because they were millionaires on paper when we went public, and now we're not worth anything. And so it sounds cold, but I cried. Like, I cried actually. And I had to let this woman who was in the marketing, who's such a great person, I let her go, and she cried and I cried with her. And she goes, I get it and everything. And then there's more crying going on for the rest of the year because it's emotionally draining. You're just, and somewhere I became very numb. After 9/11, I became pretty numb to everything because it was so surreal. We were in New York. We watched the towers go down. It was like managing through a fear of death. And you just, as a human, become kind of numb. And you're like, you just like, I got to work through this. And emotionally, you're kind of done. So it sucked. It emotionally took a toll on me, and it taught me a lot of lessons, at the same time. So,
yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's something that so many entrepreneurs, like there's so many ups and downs with this. And when you get into this, you don't really understand it until you actually do it. I did it, when I used to be a civil engineer and got into all this stuff. Like it's just a whole different world. It's one of the reasons why our logo is like that, the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. And we actually had a question yesterday kind of around this too. But one of the things that is really interesting that I think is also really helpful for people is how people go through these hard times or how they deal with their mental health and wellness. Do you have any things that you'd like to share around that, or things that you do when these things happen, like when you are going through a rut or a hard time with your business? Are there things that you tend to go to, or are there books? Are there things that you do that you've seen help, or that you can share with other people that might be able to help them as they're going through maybe some of these hard times?
yeah, I mean, look, that's the part is the mental game. Like, you can really um, put yourself in the dumps, and so and it's easy to do that, and it's hard running a business. Like, a business it's a very, people don't realize you're a professional athlete, and but they don't see it like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's athletes and you see them on the court, the agony of defeat and all that stuff. In business, it's kind of like, it's different. For entrepreneurs, it's like you're in that game all day. And then the higher you take the game, the more professional you are. So the more pressure you have to perform. And so, I mean, through my path and my journey, I did so many things. I did Tony Robbins. I've read, I'm a tremendous reader of books and especially biographies and stuff. I remember Losing My Virginity, which was Richard Branson's book. I was reading it during the roadshow of the IPO, and it was like, it just kept me kind of focused on, like, he went through so much to build Virgin and everything. And then, then at 40 years old, I got into meditation. I went to India. I made my way there. I was talking to a guy, and for my birthday, I was on a flight, and he said, "Why don't you go to India?" And I went to this ashram. Meditation really helped me um, understand things about the world around me, and it made me understand that regardless if the world around me is in a chaotic mood, I have a purpose in life that God gave me. And as long as I'm doing what I believe God wants me to do, and really meditation allows you to tap into your inner voice. As an entrepreneur, we talk about gut and inner voice. It's a real thing. It's a real thing that's inside of you. And if you can use meditation to drown out the active voices and really listen to what's being told to you, you'll be okay. And so I kind of found my way to that. Now I've been doing breath work, recently. I'm doing that. You've got like athletes have all these tools, and you have to view yourself as an athlete. The average tenure of a public company CEO is 5 years, and I've been now 21. So it's like, it just takes a lot out of you, and you got to be able to be centered, and it's hard. It's the hardest thing to do, to go to bed at night with a clear mind, wake up in the morning and feel good. Like, it just doesn't happen every day. Like and I see all this BS with motivational speakers trying to pump up entrepreneurs and just get up, and it's horse shit. That's why I created my podcast called Over the Wall, was to really dig deep into like the realities of it. Let's talk about like, it's hard. At times you feel vulnerable. You get stressed. You don't feel good. You think you failed. I mean, these are all things that we're humans. But a lot of times we don't tell those stories.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. There's a couple of things that you just brought up that we could probably have a podcast on in depth themselves, but uh, two things that I really loved. Number one, comparing entrepreneurship to athletes. And I've actually realized this same thing. Over the last 5-10 years now, how much it's related. And the weird part about, especially CEOs and like being the founder, is you kind of have to play being like the quarterback and the athlete at the same time as, in a lot of ways, being the coach too, which can be very difficult. So I don't know if you've made that comparison before, but if you want to speak to that too, real quick, or how you balance that, because that's one thing I've noticed, and one thing that's been hard for me too, is because you need to perform, but you also, in a lot of ways, can, if you are just a really good coach and manager, then you let the other people perform well also. And some people are actually better at doing that than actually playing themselves. So how do you look at that? Is it something where you're more of an athlete in the earlier days and then you become a coach later on as you become a larger company? Or how do you kind of compare that athlete versus coach as it relates to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think Michael, you hit it. That's like such a great point, because I wish I was an individual contributor. Like, I think of a tennis player, and they're just playing tennis, right? And it's that, and then they have coaches, and that's all they have to focus on. Like, if all I had to do all day was just focus on myself and bettering myself, and that could give me the results I need. But I can't build, a multi-billion-dollar company with myself. I couldn't build, a $2 million company with myself, right? So this is the thing. Like, you're executing on your work, which a lot of times is you're selling, you're supporting, you're doing things to drive revenue. And on the same time, you're managing a bunch of people that have their own things and their own personalities, and you're trying to get all that lockstep. And so this is what kind of pulls at both ends. And so some days you think, man, I'm nailing it. And then over here, you got something going on with somebody you work with, or over here, it's perfect. And then, it's not, so I think it's tougher than the professional sports, athlete, because you're right. We're coaching, and we're the quarterback coach all day. And that's a really hard thing to do. And that's a hard skill to build, by the way. Like, so it'd be great if you're just a coach, or it'd be great if you're just an individual contributor. But as a leader of a business, we always say we need player coaches. We, in our company, we like to hire player coaches. Like, coaches here just don't work very well. If you don't get your hands dirty, like this is a lack of respect here. And so it's because part of this is what I feel like, if I want to be in the business, I got to have my hands in the business. So I agree with you. And so you're playing psychologist a lot, you're trying to understand people. So all I can say is, if I take a step back, it starts with your vision. It starts with the mission of your company, and it starts with values. And we didn't put values in our company until about 10 years in. And I kind of wish we would have done it earlier, because if you set those up right and they're very clear, as you hire people, you're hiring against that. And if you have issues with people, it's usually against your values. What you find is that I'm having an issue with the person, it's really values. It's They don't represent the values in this company. I don't even know what the values of the company, because they're in your brain, versus like they're written down and they're memorialized and they're being lived and trained. If you can do this even with 10 people in a company, I would do it. This is what I do. It would make the player coach thing easier.
I love that. I think you're spot on. It's something that I'm trying to figure out as well, when to be the player and to be the coach. And it's something I think you need to, and I think a lot of it goes back to also a lot of people, they'll do what they see happening within the company as well. So if they see you only managing or only coaching, then that's kind of the essence of it. But if they see you, actually doing the work also, then they understand that, okay, even though I'm a manager or an executive too, there's points in times where I need to get the work done as well. I can't just keep managing people. So I think that's really, really important. I love this topic. I think so there's definitely something there that needs to get, like, that idea is something that I wish it needs to get talked about more in the space. But moving on, I know you do a lot of stuff, and as we're getting towards the end here, if we'll take some questions too from the people listening live. And obviously we're recording this and it will go out, but if you guys have questions, just drop them in the room chat there, and we'll get to some questions towards the end as well for Rob. But I wanna start talking a little bit more about what you guys are doing now at LivePerson, your interests now, as the industry has evolved. It seems like you guys are really getting into data and AI now, and I know you're also involved in another AI project, equalai.org, which I'll drop the link to that as well. But if you want to speak to that real quick, on how your business has evolved, and then where you see this industry going, and if you want to touch on anything with AI as well, I think it's a very fascinating thing that's going to be impacting a lot of industries going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I fundamentally believe that, everyone's talking about AI and stuff like that, but we see the practical application of it, which is automating, in our case, the communications between our brand and its consumers. But ultimately, I made a big pivot out of chat 7 years ago, or 7 years ago. I put a business plan in to make the pivot. I didn't think chat was going to get us to this future. Because I've always felt that digital conversations are powering commerce. We see that. That's what we saw in chat. But chat wasn't scaling at any real rate. Like, it wasn't like, there's still billions of phone calls happening to brands every day, even though there was our chat business. So we pivoted it into messaging, like asynchronous messaging, like people are messaging on WhatsApp and Facebook. So that's aligning with consumer behavior, but there's a bigger vision. And what we're trying to build at the company is an AI that would live in your life like an Alexa, but that you would trust, that would feel like it's yours, and that it will help you solve your most important intents in your life. And that's where we need to get time back. We still waste a lot of time on a lot of things, from healthcare advice. Like we're working on a health product. It's like I got to talk to my doctor, and they give me these tests, and I don't really know what it means, and they tell me to take a pill, and there's such an inefficiency in all of that. So how can we help with that? We launched a bank around this concept, around community and connection, and getting you to get real ownership over your finances. It's called Bella. And actually, the AI ultimately we call Bella. And then we have all these brands. We have 10,000 companies that are on our platform, and they're using our technology to power like the T-Mobiles and Citibanks and companies like that are powering their AI experiences with their consumers. But one day I want to power them with Bella too. So I just see there's got to be, if you ever saw the movie Her, it's kind of like what we're trying to create. We're trying to create this lovable, thing that can be in your life, help you. I want to get a tutor for my kid. I'll find you one. I want to book a trip to Italy with my family. I'll find. I want to pay my bill at T-Mobile. Great. I want to check out, like, if Bella wakes up and tells me, hey, it seems like your sleep wasn't too good last night. Maybe we should change your workout today. Here's your new workout. Great. Hey, have you eaten correctly? Tell me what you like. That's the kind of thing we're constructing. It's not fantasy. We're putting in all the layers to build that. And that's kind of my vision.
That's really fascinating. I think so to that point, are you guys planning to get into hardware then? Are you thinking about, okay, how can we actually, or are you partnering with hardware companies and then you guys are more of the data and AI layer on top of that? How is that? How are you thinking about that? Because I 100% agree. I mean, I think like now, there's so many Alexa devices. People are used to, or starting to get used to actually talking to, these objects and essentially these AI, voice controlled speakers that control lights and everything else. Like it's been great even for, my grandma. She tells Alexa to turn on this light and that light and do this and, do that. And I think it's just the beginning of it because especially as millennials and these generations get older, we're already used to this stuff. So it's going to make it, much easier to adopt and it's going to be much more part of our lives. But I think the real key is the hardware and then how that relates to it. And whoever owns that, which is why Amazon and Google and all of them are trying to get their devices in everyone's home as quickly as possible. So how are you guys approaching that? Are you looking to partner with them or are you actually getting into the game yourself?
It really depends. I mean, I see this world that I'd like to live in many different devices, not just ours. I think it all comes down to can the device process conversation? Like Alexa doesn't do this today.
Right.
It's like it takes in a command, it sends down the command, it then processes the command. Like we can't even use our conversational system on Alexa because of the way it times out. It'll time out if someone's
Right.
not. And conversations don't happen all like they may take time. So Alexa doesn't really work today. But we may have a device in the future. I could see it. I also would just like to live in your phone and other devices that you take with you, which are conversational. You can converse into your phone. We can do things like that. So I think, yeah, I'm open to it. It's a different world. I think the first thing is just, we're so focused on making conversations beautiful for brands. And we use the word beauty around here, like high quality, beautiful conversations. And the people that are running the technology stack are like, why can't it be better than human? Like they keep thinking like, why can't our conversation with the machine be better than a human conversation? It's interesting, so.
It's a really interesting concept. Yeah. Well, I think you can tell too who has good AI chats. Like if I'm talking to an AI on a website, like I can tell like most of them are not good. Right. But you can tell like yours, like it makes sense, like what's happening. And you guys have been in this space for so long and you basically invented this space, but you probably have so much data on conversations where you can analyze, okay, we have this huge storage of all of these conversations that have happened. Now we can leverage that to predict and analyze future conversations and make it even easier that no one else can really do. Or there's probably not many companies that have the mass of, historical conversations that you guys have the ability to do.
That's right. And we're about to hit this month 1 billion conversations in the month.
Wow.
So
So
for that data set, like this is why we have like the core engineering team that was at Alexa over here. And we have like some of the best engineers around data science, because when they see that data of full end-to-end conversations between a brand and its consumers around every use case you can think of, if we can automate all those, that we're covering basically like 80% of the intents in your life. There's some verticals we're not highly penetrated in today, but like we're in insurance, we're in travel, we're in definitely banking and telco, we're in retail. So like we're covering across all of it. And if we can automate all those, because for better or for worse, all the agent today, the contact center agent has one job. They are a middle person between an intent of a consumer and a legacy backend system. Like we don't want to talk to a contact center rep somewhere in the world and say, "Hi, how you doing? Hey, I'm really lonely on today. Can I just sit and talk to you for the next 8 minutes because I need you to talk." Like there's a lot of places I could go if I'm lonely, and it's not a contact center agent. But it's funny enough, brands have this legacy thinking like, oh, people want to talk to our people, and that creates relationship. But the way you treat people is, first of all, the people who answer the phone, they're on a timer. They can't keep you can't be on the phone more than 6 minutes or 8 minutes, or they get dinged. So they're always rushing. They're in some back-end system that sucks. So they're like, hang on. They may be in some foreign country and you can't understand. They may put you on hold for 2 hours or an hour. It's this whole mess. So it's not like, hey, let's go out to lunch. What are you doing today? What are you wearing? It's like, this sucks, And so machine should replace all of that time that we lose. And the contact center agents, not a great job. Like, not a great job in this day and age. They need to be trained to be bot builders. Like we are training them now to build bots and build automations. They're changing their salaries. They're changing their lives. They're not answering phone calls, like not in 2021.
yeah, it blows my mind. I get frustrated when I have to talk to someone. Like it's because it's just not necessary, and it can be done asynchronistically most of the time anyway. And it can be done very simply. It's, most of the time, like you were saying too, intent is a very important thing. It's like, I'm contacting support because I have something wrong or I need something. And if you can figure out what that is as fast as possible, and most of the time, I would bet 95% of the time, it's a very simple thing that people solve quickly, or it's just user error and they didn't know where to find it or something like that. So it's really interesting. I think there's so much, it's crazy that there's still so much room in the industry, and so many people are still sick and tired of customer service. And it still hasn't gotten, there's still so much there, opportunity in the space to make it frictionless, to make it easier, and to save people time, which is, I think, a huge thing. So I absolutely love that. As we wrap up here, I want to throw out a few of the questions here as well. So one person's asking kind of about the scar tissue. We were kind of hinting at this a little bit earlier. How did you develop? So when you're first starting out, going through all the ups and downs is tough, but you kind of hinted on this a little bit. As you go through it so many times, as you fire people and fail and struggle, you develop almost a scar tissue for it, right? You get used to it a little bit more. Is there any way that you've uncovered to like get more comfortable with the uncomfortable? Is there any advice you have around that subject?
I mean, right now we're going through it's interesting because right now we're going through a big period of change, and I can feel it. Like every 5 to 7 years in our business, like business change, like we grew from like 200 something million to 500 million in 24 months. Like it's a pretty massive lift. And, we're hiring a bunch of people. I brought in some new leaders, but we're definitely like, we're trying to be $1 billion revenue company. It's like different set of things. And we have this vision, this big vision, and I can feel it. You feel that change. So during these periods, it's, I just gotta, you accept that there's uncertainty. As an entrepreneur, you naturally want more control over your life. That's why you decided to take the job, to do this job. You've decided, I want more control of my life. Well, that comes with a lot of responsibility. But sometimes you have control and sometimes you have a lot of control. And I think the hardest thing is to say, okay, we're going through a period of change. That's all it is. I need to play it out. It's not all going to be perfect. So I can't beat myself up. I may hire the wrong people one time, but I got to move fast on doing so. I may make mistakes on something else. Either way, fail fast, make decisions, move forward. Like, and the hardest thing is if you wallow in it and hold on to stuff that's not working for you, that's where you end up in like the trench, and you don't want to end up in the trench. So, that's, and a good night's sleep. Like the best thing, like I value my sleep. Like during times of change, I just know I got to get sleep. I hate when I don't get good sleep. Like I have to sleep 6.5 hours. I know exactly when I'm supposed to sleep. I did a sleeping program online to get my whole sleep. There's a whole sleep thing that you should do. If you can't go on the Mind Valley app, there's a whole sleep thing there. That's what I did. I learned like what my sleep window was between 10:30 and 11:30. I wear the blue blocker glasses. Like the reason I say that, I've found sleep will heal all wounds. Like I will. And the other thing is that it's very important not to respond to the inputs because there's a lot of inputs coming at you. And the best thing to do is just be like, I'm not making a decision here on this right now. I'm going to let it play out for 3 days and see how I feel 3 days from now. You have to, you bend down time. You got to bend down time in certain cases because you'll react emotionally. If you react with emotion, you're going to make a mistake. So if you feel all riled up and pissed or angry or you have anxiety, stop, break the emergency glass and just chill and sleep. You need to sleep, like get sleep.
Yeah, I love that. That's it's one of the most difficult things too for entrepreneurs, and I think routine helps tremendously with that. One thing that you touched on earlier, I forgot to bring it back up, was the meditation. Do you do morning minute? What have you found to be helpful for yourself? I know it can be different for other people, but do you like morning meditation, evening meditation, both? Do you transcendental meditation, guided meditations? I know you mentioned breath work and stuff too. Do you have any routine around that, or when have you found it to be helpful?
No, at this ashram where I was taught, first of all, at the ashram, they didn't teach you how to meditate. It's called Sri Aurobindo is the ashram in Pondicherry. If you ever get a chance, it's a good place to go. When you arrive, there's a help desk. And I remember I arrived there. I was arriving for my birthday all alone. And I'm like, I've come to meditate. Where do I take the class? And this little Indian guy, older guy that helped us, like, we don't give classes. I'm like, can I get a guru or something? Like, what can I get here? He's like, no. And he hands me this pamphlet. It's like a 6-page pamphlet. He goes, read this pamphlet and don't talk to anybody. Like, I realized, like, I just came from the United States to India. Like, and he's like, meditation is a very personal thing. You need to find your way. So that's the first thing I heard, which is like, don't go to classes. The second thing is I started to meet people at the ashram, started to talk. I started to wake up in the morning. I would start reading the pamphlet and then it took a couple of days, maybe about 5 days. And I started to get into the group. But someone told me at the ashram, the goal here is to be meditating in a crowded subway and not with your eyes closed, but to be in a meditative state at all times. And so what that means is that you are connected to your purpose, your inner voice at all times, and that keeps peace. Now, there are times where I got a lot of noise and I have to take actual time and go through emotion. I usually do it in the morning where it's quiet. And so that's when I know there's too much stuff going on. I can't get to my inner voice. There's like a lot of active voices. I'm like, what's the inner voice really telling me? And I get to it. The breath work I just started about 2 months ago, and I use Soma. It's called Soma breath. And I met the guy. I was in Majorca at an offsite. We brought him. Extraordinary. Breath lowers cortisol. The breath work will, if I do every morning, 30 minutes of breath work, guided through this app, and it lowers your cortisol and your stress. And it's an extraordinary thing. I would definitely do breath work. People underestimate this. The only thing we need to do in our life is breathe. Like, we don't need water every minute of the day. We need to breathe. And so if we breathe the right way, our body thinks, hey, we're chill. If we don't breathe the right way, our body thinks we're being attacked by a dinosaur. And it releases chemicals and all sorts of shit to like put you in heightened alert that you're going to die. And when those chemicals hit like cortisol and stuff, that messes up your heart, your body, your brain. So you have to be in some different states there. Yeah, summer breath, that's there.
Yep. Yeah, I forget when I found out about them. I've been I need to get back into the routine of meditation, breath work, and yoga. I was doing really good at it for a while, and then man, it's I think this is probably a sign to get back into things. But I think it's definitely calming, and yeah, the routine of it can be incredible. Are there any other things real quick that you use for meditation? Do you use like any other apps or anything else you use, like Oura Ring or Headspace?
No, because I learned, and then I went back 3 years ago again on my birthday. I keep in contact with people at the ashram, so they send me things all the time. I read the writings of the founders of the ashram who have been dead for many years, and so I keep a connection with that. But look, it's one of many things in your arsenal. You gotta find the things, like, it may not be meditation, maybe breath work. Like, why do I need to do breath work when I'm doing meditation? Because it's not cutting it. Like, it gets harder as I get older. It gets harder actually as I get more responsibility. We got 1,500 people in the company. We're in a different place with the business, which requires a lot more thinking and energy. And so I need tools. I need better tools. And Tony Robbins got me off the couch. Like, Tony Robbins is great to clean up any mess. You go to Unleash the Power Within. It's a 3-day event. Whatever is messed up your life in your past, like literally, whatever happened in your childhood, however bad it was, you go through 3 days on Unleash the Power Within. They do neuro-linguistic programming. They will reprogram your brain to let go of the emotional baggage of that event. And a lot of people, you need to do that. So when I was younger, I had that stuff and I need to clean that up. So I found myself to Tony Robbins. I don't really need that as much right now. I like Tony, but I don't really prescribe to his stuff anymore because it doesn't serve me. I've had a coach for most of my life. Since 32 years old, I've had a coach, and I've had different coaches. So it's good to have someone to talk to. Sometimes a release, and not your family or friends, not your family or friends. You can't listen to your bullshit all day. You got to face.
That's for sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you for sharing all of that. I think it's incredibly helpful, and I think it's the future of, a lot of entrepreneurship as well. I think we're just starting to tap into, more broader awareness and mindfulness of all of this stuff. And, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back into it, and, really appreciate you for sharing all of this. I know we're coming up on time here. So I want to, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing all the incredible things that you're going to be doing in the future with LivePerson as well. Also, definitely check out Rob's podcast as well. Rob, as we wrap up here, what would be, do you have any final pieces of advice, anything else that you'd like to share for maybe some of the young entrepreneurs or investors listening in? Any final things that you'd like to share? And then let people know where they can, follow you, connect with you as well, and where they should learn more.
Sure. I mean, I go back to, it's really important that you follow your gut. And what I learned, as I was saying, is that the gut is an active voice. And whether you're an investor, whether you're an entrepreneur, there are times where you have to make very hard decisions, and that will steer you clear. There are times where I didn't take investment from certain people because my gut told me if I do that, it's probably going to hurt. And so we all are given this powerful thing that sits inside of us. It's a gift. And I'll leave you with a story about that. For that, I'll play. So you get me. I have a podcast called Over the Wall. I'm on all the social channels, but Over the Wall, I've done interviews with like, all sorts of people like Tim Story and Deepak Chopra and Ed Norton, the actor, and the co-founder of Netflix, and all sorts of people, and Susie Orman, and also feel, and and I really pride myself in trying to dig deep with them on like what's real. Don't give me the BS stuff. What's real in running your life and your business and being successful. So check that out. But I'll leave you with a story about the inner voice. So um I was told this at the ashram. So, at one time there were only gods in the world. And then there was earth. And the gods wanted to populate earth with people. And so they wanted to take some of the gods, the ones that were so-so, and put them down on earth. But the big problem was that they knew that they would still be gods. They would have godlike powers. So there's these two gods up there talking to each other, like what to do. One god says, well, we need to hide the godlike powers because we can't let everyone down there these are humans now. They got flesh and blood. They're not up here in the ether. So the one god says, well, where should we hide it? And the other god says, we're going to hide in the most hardest place for a human to find its godlike powers. And the guy says, the other god, or the woman says, well, where? And the god says, with it. We'll stick it right with them. They'll never find it. And, it kind of stuck with me. Like, it's hard to find the thing within. We distract ourselves with things without and outside, but it's hard to sit with yourself, listen to your voice, and actually take its instruction. It says, quit my job. It says, don't hire that person. It says, don't take the money, even though I need it so bad. It says, do things that I don't want to do because they're going to create pain for me. But if you want to know what happiness and sadness is, that's the arbiter of that voice. And you can drown it out with drugs. You can drown it out with alcohol. You can drown it out with distraction. You can drown it out with social media. You can literally drown it out. And people self-medicate to drown out the voice that's telling them you're not living the life you should lead. But you will never outrun your voice. You'll die happy or sad, but you're never going to outrun your inner voice. So you're better off facing it, sucking it up. It's going to suck. It's going to ask you to do things, but at the end, you're going to be so happy that you did it, and you'll be a hero. You'll have the hero story. You'll have the hero story.
I absolutely love that. It's really funny that you bring this up right now. This gives a whole nother tangent, but it reminds me a lot of Joseph Campbell's philosophy. If you're familiar with the hero's journey, so I don't know if you've seen the documentary called Finding Joe.
Yep.
I watched that right before I graduated in 2014. And then I got my job and everything, but I always kept thinking back to that and following your bliss. And when I really thought about what I was doing, I realized I wasn't following my bliss. And that's what led me to leaving my job and then going on this whole entrepreneur journey for the last 6 years. And it's been like nuts. It's been a lot of shitty times and everything, but like, I'm much more of myself now. I'm following my bliss 100%. I know exactly what I want. And like, I'm on that path now to like my hero's journey, like you're saying. So, I would encourage anyone to watch that. It's huge. There's so many things within Joseph Campbell's like whole philosophy. It seems like you're very familiar with it. And
about storytelling, like the stories that we always relate to, and this is the story all of us want. We have the hero story is that had a vision, went on a mission. Found someone to come with you on the mission. Found evil on the mission that tried to defeat you. You know what I'm saying? Usually bigger and bolder. You defeat, and then you continued on with the mission and you succeeded. Star will know Joseph Campbell was how Star Wars was created. That was just based on the hero's journey. So we all have it in us to be a hero. We all have it in us to be a god, you know, and so it's better off to do it. I feel sorry for people. You never want to get on your deathbed. And, we're all going one place. The only thing we all know is everyone on this is going one place. We all will die. I don't know what else will happen in between. You may succeed, you may fail, may get a job, may go. But the end result is the same for all of us. So what does that mean? It means at the end, when they bury you, they're not going to talk about when you didn't make your number or you failed. It's not how it works in the funeral. The worst part is, though, if you are there that day before you go and you're sitting and go, what if? What if I only did the thing I wanted to do? How would my life been different? And no way do you want to be at the end of your life with the what if, because you will be reincarnated and stuck back on this rock to go live it out again. And I'd rather just move on and find wherever the next place is than have to come back to wherever the hell this is and go live through this stuff again.
I love it. I think that's a great way to wrap things up. This, I feel like this conversation was just about as much about business as it was more of the inner game as well, which it seems like you spent a lot of time understanding and thinking about too, which is awesome. And definitely, really, really enjoyed this, Rob, and appreciate your time. Looking forward to staying in touch. Looking forward to all the amazing things that you have going on. If there's any other links or anything else that you want to drop in there, I shared the podcast link there so people can check that out and stay in touch with you. Follow Rob out on social media as well. I know you're starting to get more active and put out a lot of great content there as well. So Rob, appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much. And everyone who listened, thank you for listening. We will be dropping the recording in the next few days. So let us know if you need anything else, and really appreciate everyone for coming out. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Michael. Have a good one.
Got it. Take care. For people who are new to Entre, we're going to be doing a bunch of these interviews with CEOs, investors, all sorts of people. There's always different rooms and stuff going on here on Entre. I think we have one coming up here shortly on Web3 and the metaverse. But there's a bunch of things constantly going on here, events. Introduce yourself to the community. We want this to be a place where you can find other like-minded individuals to connect with, grow your team, find investors, all of that. We have a lot of exciting things coming up here in the future as well. If you are a founder, if you're looking to fundraise and you want to get in front of investors, we have our pitch competition as well. And that's just, every single month now we're going to be doing this. We're going to be giving out $1,000 in cash plus a bunch of different prizes. That will be going on. You'll see the pitch feed if you go to the app, and you can apply there to pitch. And we're trying to help out as many founders and people as we can, get in front of the right people and just give them access to entrepreneurs and investors. So thank you everyone for coming through. Hope everyone enjoyed it. This is basically our third now live podcast on Entre. It's something that now anyone can basically host, record, and have basically live viewers for their podcast directly on Entre or any show or event that you'd like. So if you are a podcaster or you're looking to do events, you can now do them directly on Entre, on video with screen sharing, recording. You could even charge by connecting your Stripe account if you wanted to. If you're doing paid events or workshops or anything like that, you now have the ability to do all of those things directly through Entre on any device. So we're excited about all of that stuff. We're going to be doing a lot more of these interviews as well going forward now. And if you have any interesting people that you think would be cool, founders, investors, let me know. Feel free to reach out. We're always looking for new guests and we're always looking for new people to come on. to the show and also do their own show as well. If you're interested in doing a podcast, we'd love to talk to you about that and get you set up. It's totally free as well. So our goal is to make it really, really easy for people to get started and get rolling with their podcasts and their content and all of that, and easily make money as well very, very quickly. If there's anything that we can do to help, if you have questions about anything, if you have questions about Entre, if you have questions about starting or growing your business, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always here to help, and you can message me at any time. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Entrepreneur Show. If you'd like to connect and network with other like-minded people, entrepreneurs, investors, freelancers, and startups, check out our app or go to our website, joinentre.com. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. If there's anything that we can do to help you, please reach out to us and let us know.